What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with my top 5 bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. We have 2 big cards this weekend. We have the UFC on ESPN 68 card, which goes down on May 31st in the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, and then we're off to Rome. Also May 31st for Cage Warriors 189. So I have 1 bet from Cage Warriors, and I have 4 bets from the UFC this week, which is somewhat unusual for me, I think. But the Cage Warriors card is one of those cards where I think there's a lot of favourites, and I fancy a lot of the favourites, but my one I'm giving you is not the favourite. It's actually a pretty good priced underdog, as today are every single one of my bets. All plus money bets today, so no messing, no plus 200s, minus 200s, no minus 300s, all plus money bets today, so hopefully we can make some money out of that. Last week's show obviously was a mid-year pick show. If you haven't seen that, please check it out and please watch it there. But to recap the bets from the week before, we had no major mixed martial arts last week, but from the week before, we had Bellator against Craig. That fight didn't happen, so that one's cancelled. But out of the other 3 bets we hit 2 of them, so not so bad. We had Dennis Frimpong at plus money, plus 105 over an octagon. We had Morales to get the knockout, which he did at minus 140. In hindsight, an absolutely brilliant price and a brilliant bet. I saw a few people, it's funny, he fought Gilbert Burns, obviously. I think Danny Segura was on, but another few people said, like, I think Burns has been underestimated here. And it was, a lot of people saying that. And it's funny because sometimes I give a bet here and then I maybe think about it more. I go, maybe I should have picked Burns, or maybe I should have picked, O'Malley, or whoever it might be. But this was one of those ones I saw people tweeting about, and I was like, geez, lads, I might be wrong, but I don't agree. I don't know. I thought this was Morales' time, and this was on the other side of it, Burns' time, and thankfully we got a bet right. Unfortunately for Burns, but he's had a great career, I think. And the one that didn't hit was Langer over in an octagon as well. He won their first fight, but he ended up losing this one pretty quickly. So it was a plus 205 hit anyway, and then the Flier was plus 1,000. Erosa to get the knockout. If you watch that fight, he lost like 75% of the fight, but he was well in it for most of the fight, and he was well in with landing a good few shots as well for most of the fight. So for a plus 1,000 Flyer, it wasn't a bad bet, but again, it did not hit. So only 1 Flyer so far from 16 weeks. I thought last year would be the worst ever, but looks like this year might be worse. But we have turned the corner on our other bets. So we 39 from 79, which is pretty good. It's just over the 50% mark, is it? It's around it anyway. So 40 from 80 would be 50%. So 39 from 79 is better than 50%. And anyway, we'll even it all out next week, and we'll hopefully get some good stuff. If you haven't seen as well last week's show, please do check it out. I give you a lot of my picks for the upcoming fights and upcoming title fights as well. Again, I did say on that show, some of them might change with changing prices with different fields and things like that, but got some good prices out there, and I think it's an interesting show to watch. But for now, we'll talk about the bets coming up this weekend, and I'm going to start with Cage Warriors. I'll give you my 1 Cage Warriors bet, maybe talk about a couple of the other fights, and then we'll head over to the UFC for my last 4 bets. So I'm gonna give you what I thought was the most shocking price on the ledger when I looked at it for the first time this morning. The bets only came out. Now these again could change in the days leading up to the fight, but I'm going with Ryan Shelley at plus 195 to win his co-main event fight with Simone Diana at Cage Warriors 189. If you haven't actually seen the preview, myself and Brad Wharton did it. It's already up here on Sherdog.com or on the YouTube channel. So check that out there. But I think me and Brad both kind of agreed on this fight that it's a very, very interesting fight and a very, very close fight. Like, I was stunned to see there was this much of a difference between both of them. In fact, I thought Shelley might be a favourite. Now, I wasn't wholly convinced. If you'd asked me to put the line on it beforehand, I probably would have gone maybe Shelley minus 110 and Diana, plus 110-ish or something like that, whatever way that line would work out. Probably would have just made Shelley the favourite. Now, I think the difference between Shelley and Dana is Dana's in probably the best form of his career. At 29 years of age, for a guy who's not been the most active guy in the world. And then Shelley on the other side of it is probably in, the midst of the toughest part of his career. But, it's not always about that. It's so, it can come down to that, right? Sometimes, but sometimes it comes down to the skills and people's ability and people's, match up against their opponent and things like that. Now, just on the first point, so Ryan Shelley started off his career and looked absolutely amazing. Himself and his brother coming out of Chris Fields' gym in Dublin looked really good. He went 6-0 to start his career, beating the likes of Matthew Elliott and Josh Reed. Josh Reed, Cage Warriors legend. Matthew Elliott, we all know how good he looked a couple of weeks ago. And then he got into the title picture. He fought Tobias Harila, ended up losing that fight. Fought Jordy Bacchus, ended up losing that fight as well. But then he bounced back with a win over Callum Parker in April last year. But then in July, he fought Nick Bagley. In my opinion, Nick Bagley is the best fighter in Cage Warriors right now. That's my opinion. I said it. This is not just Irish bias or whatever. I said it to, and Nick Bagley is English as well, so Irish bias towards Shelley. I said that to Brad. Actually, Brad mentioned on the broadcast actually for Bagley's last fight. So that's a tough fight. That's a real tough fight. So the 3 losses for him, I wouldn't have expected him to beat Harila or Bagley. The Bacchus fight, a little bit different. So like he's been in there and lost to 3 really good guys, 2 guys who I think most people would have picked, maybe not necessarily to beat him, but give a good rattle. Whereas the other side of it, like Simon Dana, like, has he really beaten anyone you wouldn't expect him to beat, if you want to put it that way? Like Albert Diaz, maybe you could say that was a good winning unanimous decision. But again, Albert Diaz is kind of similar to himself, maybe not the most active guy in the world, but a good fighter. His other fights, he lost to Jordan Vucinic, got submitted in a round and a half. Lost to my countryman Brian Moore, lost to Michele Martignoni, Jacob Vishlak. And, it's back. I suppose the Tom Creasy fight was probably the best win, aside from the Diaz one. But that was back all the way in 2017. So I think it's interesting the way it lines up here. Now, Dana is, an interesting fighter. And we'll talk about him in a second. But Shelley, first of all, like the Shelley brothers started off as, taekwondo guys with lovely kicks and real, just real good strikers. But, they've had to adjust their game and become really well-rounded. In fact, both of them, I think, have had a lot of clinching in recent fights. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, maybe have they gone too far that way? But I think if Ryan Shelley can draw it back a little bit and fight more like Ryan Shelley, I think that's a good thing. And against Dana, his game is kind of like that as well. I always describe him a little bit like Matt Brown, all knees and elbows and willing to fight, old school kind of guy, good leg kicks. And, he won't be trying to take Shelley down all night, I don't think. I think he'd be happy enough to strike with him. Now, will Shelley try to take him down? That's another side of it. I think he actually might. But I think Shelley has the beating of him in both areas. Now, when I say has the beating of him, I think he can beat him in both areas. Will he necessarily beat him? I suppose we'll see on that. But I do think, Dana's grappling is good and he's a few submissions on his ledger. But I think the way Shelley has been grappling against guys recently, like he's made it more of a weapon for himself. And the key point here, I mentioned a second ago, but if he can just merge that really good striking with the newfound grappling, he could be a real issue for a lot of these guys. And I'll be honest, like I have a lot of respect for Simon Dana. I don't think he's on the level of Nick Bagley or some of the other guys that Ryan Shelley has fought. So to go back to the initial point of Shelley being in the worst part of his career, Dana being in the best, that's because of the opponents, I think. And if you were to ask me who is a better fighter overall and who is the higher ceiling and who could go on to be the better fighter, I would say Ryan Shelley. Like right now it's close. But I still think, like, if things can go right for Shelley, now, he takes another couple of losses, it's going to be very tough for that to happen, you get me? But if he gets this win, gets another couple of wins, you could see Ryan Shelley fighting for a cage warrior title. He was almost there before. You could see him go on to be in the UFC. With Dana, I don't think that's the case. He's had some good opportunities. He's fought in Cage Warriors 3 or 4 times. He's fought in Venator. He's fought in Bellator a few times as well. you know, and he hasn't taken those chances with all due respect. Now, again, he's been in there against good guys like Brian Moore, but I think Ryan Shelley can absolutely win this fight. He'd be my pick to win the fight, and a plus 195. That's crazy price, I think. Really, really is a crazy price. So I'm going for him in that one. Right, let's just touch on a couple more of the Cage Warriors prices here. Interest in the main event, minus 205 for Michaelis, and Ukar's plus 170. Yeah, I think that's just about right. I think I think Michaelis is and should be the favorite there. You know, watching a bit of him, very, very calm. A good southpaw fighter, a fight kind of in a straight line, whereas, you know, Ukar is kind of one of these all-out technical brawlers, and, you know, a very, very good fighter. Now, he could catch him. You know, there's always a chance in MMA, but Michaelis, to me, he has the wrestling as well. I kind of half forgot that in the preview show, but thankfully Brad brought it up. I think that might be the difference in that one. Interest in Scioli and Hija. Scioli's minus 201 favorite. I think that's a pretty good price. I think he should be the favorite. Hila is he's more of an up-and-coming guy. Scioli's been around for a good long while. So you might get cut out there, but that price seems a little bit too good to be true. But anyway, the next two fights in big favorites. Paddy McCarry minus 1200. He'll more than likely win this fight. Although I do like Suki Faraj. I like him an awful lot, but he's coming up against a guy that I don't think he's going to beat, unfortunately, for old Faraj. Then Callum Diaz is a big favourite over George McManus. George McManus game, but I don't think he's going to win that fight. We've Nicholas Blonde as well as a big favourite, minus 301. Martin Yoni against Tarabori. I couldn't see too much of Tarabori out there, but I probably like Martin Yoni at that price, minus 130. Obviously, his brother, a very, very good fighter as well. And Luca Brando is another guy who's been around the scene for a while. He's minus 400 in his fight over there. So, as I said, a lot of big favourites, a lot of bad prices over there, but I found the good one, I think, in Ryan Shelley at plus 195. So if you can get that, I would get it. Right, let's jump over to the UFC and let's talk about some of the prices there. So bet number 2 from the UFC, I'm going to go with Ketlen Vieira at plus 100 to win her fight over at UFC on ESPN 68 against Macy Chiasson. You know, Ketlen Vieira is one of those fighters who's just been around for a long time, you know, been on the verge, I suppose, for a long time. Never really got that that big opportunity yet, but also like lost fights along the way, which maybe not necessarily she shouldn't have lost, but like the Ana Santos one really stands out. Like, you win that fight, you know, you beat Miesha Tate and Holly Holm after it, you're more than likely getting a title shot. But then people are just thinking of that loss. Then you lose to Raquel Pennington as a split decision. You lose to Kayla Harrison. Okay, that's a little bit different, but against Macy Chiasson, like, I think Macy at 33 years of age now, again, is probably in the best stage of her career. She had a very, very good win against Mayra Bona Silva last time out. I didn't think Mayra was going to win that fight, but she, I thought Mayra was going to win that fight, but she didn't. And you know, she beat Patty Kianzad before that. But again, she's similar losses, lost to Aldana, lost to Pennington. And I think in those fights, like the Pennington one especially, look, she got guillotined and out-grappled for some of it. Obviously, the striking from Pennington is usually on point as well. I just feel like I often do it, and I look at fighters like Chiasson in a division where, and let me just click on Pennington here just to see it, just to make sure I'm right here. So Pennington 5'7", yes, and Chiasson 5'11". That fight and a lot of her fights, she is the bigger woman in there. She tries to be, not necessarily, the bully is the wrong way about it, but her advantage is her size a lot of the time. And even though she's taller than Ketlen Vieira, I don't think that will be an advantage in this fight. Because we know what Vieira does. She pushes people against the cage. She holds them. She is the bigger woman a lot of the time. Even if she's not taller necessarily, she might be stronger and bigger and, you know, more well able to control the fight in that way. Again, I saw her at plus 100, so I was thinking that's a pretty good price. I expected her to maybe to be the minus 150, minus 175 favorite type of thing. Again, but thought a relatively close fight, and I do think this will be a close fight. I do think it'll go to a decision. I was looking at the prices for it to go to a decision, and they weren't amazing. So that's why I went for Vieira. So let me just pull up the price here for it to go to decision, if I can. Oh yeah, here we go. So the fight to go to decision, minus 195. So not a great price. They're actually minus 295, minus 275 best price. The overs are crazy. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 350. You know, even Vieira to win the decision is only plus 150. So not an amazing price. That's why I gave you the plus 100 money on her straight up. She'll likely win a decision, but you'd never know. But again, I don't think this fight is going to be an amazing fight. I think there's going to be a lot of clinching, a lot of close in work, a lot of and I'll put it to you this way, this could come down, and I don't like saying this because I'm the judging guy. This could come down to who has the most control in the clinch, or who does the better work with the control in the clinch. It really could, because I feel like the striking is going to be probably pretty even, or maybe not much of the striking. And again, in Las Vegas as well, American judges, they do favour the grappling, who will have the grappling advantage, who will have the clinch advantage. I think it'll be Vieira, and I could be wrong, but that's the pick. Ketlen Vieira plus 100 to clinch her way to victory in that one. Right, bet number 3 of the week, as I close on my bets here. Oh no, I got them open. Hold on, never mind. I'm going to go with the main event for bet number 3. And I'm going to go for Erin Blanchfield to win by decision at plus 102. Now, Erin Blanchfield obviously is taking on Macy Barber. In this one, it was, a massive fight last time out, I suppose, for cold-blooded Erin Blanchfield against Rose Namajunas, and she came through it. She won the decision. After losing to Manon Fiorot, the two of them were neck and neck to who was going to be the next title challenger. She was, basically undefeated apart from a Tracy Cortez loss back in 2019. But it all kind of went downhill for her there. She bounced back 6 or 7 months later, and, she looked maybe not amazing in that fight, but she looked good. And I expect something similar out of this one. Like, Macy Barber to me is not a million miles away from most of the other opponents that Erin Blanchfield has taken on. I think she deserves a lot of credit for her win against Ketlen Vieira in her last fight, who's always a tough person to beat. Now, the only thing I would say with that is that was March, April, May, 14 months ago. For someone like Macy Barber, who has, had spurts out, I suppose, like her last fight before that was June the previous year, which is 9 months or something like that. She had a similar, before her second fight before that, similarly long time out. She was out for a good long time between the Roxy fight and the Grasso fight, plus the Robertson fight before that. I know there was an injury in the middle of all of that as well. So I think, I think that'll benefit Erin Blanchfield, if I'm being honest. Macy Barber, I think when she started off her career, everyone looked at her and was like, she has good power. She is a well-rounded fighter. Can she take it up the levels? And I think, she lost obviously the Roxy fight, which is really bad. And in the Grasso fight, she went on to be a champion. But I think her win streak since then, the 6-fight win streak, has actually been her changing up her game a good bit, becoming that more technical fighter rather than the kind of the raw finisher. Like in those 6 fights, she's only had 1 finish against Amanda Hebas, and even that, was in the end of the second round. She has been going to a lot of decisions, and she has been outpointing people. Now, Blanchfield, I think, is a hard person to outpoint. Now, Fiorot did it because she's very, very good, and she was just completely better than her in that fight. But I think, and this is why I'm picking the fight to go to decision as well, I think it will turn into one of those fights where it's a bit of a point fight, and they're both trying to, outpoint each other rather than outfight each other. Like, if you look at it too, in terms of 5-round fights, I'm looking here at Macy Barber's record, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is her first 5-round fight. Certainly in the UFC anyway. She's certainly never had a fight that's gone 5 rounds. And in Erin Blanchfield, conversely, her last 2 fights have both gone 5 rounds, both gone to that decision. I think that's a benefit for her. I say it all the time, but to know the pace to fight the 5 rounds is something that you won't get properly until you've done it a few times. It's very, very difficult for fighters. And it's a funny one as well, because it's a question I'd love to ask fighters, and I have asked fighters, but they're very reluctant to answer it. You know, it's one of those ones we have to speculate a lot on, or you know, maybe it's worth getting someone who's retired a few years to talk about it or something. But it's one of those what are they called? Like the wrestling and the cycling. You know, people won't talk about it. It's one of those sort of things. But I just think Blanchfield will be able to pace herself better if she wins one of the first 2 rounds. I would fancy her to go on and win that decision 3-2, 4-1. I think she's a better striker. I think she's good enough to keep the fight standing as well. And I think she'll win it there. Now, obviously, on the ground, she's plenty of submissions on her record as well, but I do think she's going to win the decision. On 9 of her 15 fights have gone to a decision. For Barbara, obviously, it's a little bit less. 8 of her 16, so just half of her fights have gone to a decision as well. And as I said, you know, 5 of the last 6 have all gone to a decision. So I think this all points to the fight going to decision, and I think Barbara will win it. Or sorry, I think Blanchfield will win it. Right. Next bet is also from over in the UFC. And this is a funny one. This is a very much a feel bet. I'm going to go with Ludovic Klein to win over Matthias Gamrot at plus 136. Now, I have 2 reasons for giving this as my pick. And they're very, like, if you had asked me about both of these guys a month ago before I knew this fight was happening, or 3 days ago before I knew this fight was happening, I would have said the exact same thing as I'm about to say, right? I don't think Gamrot is what he once was. And I think Klein is criminally underrated. So, to Gamrot first, right? He's 34 years of age. He's had 28 fights. And that Dan Hooker loss was not the performance that you would expect from Matthias Gamrot. I don't think he looked amazing against an older Dos Anjos as well before that. And like him losing to Dariush as well was, you know, not necessarily a shock. And that was 2.5 years ago now at this stage, or whatever it was, 3 years ago. But that Dan Hooker fight was a real bad sign for me. That was not the Gamrot I've known. Now, the thing about Gamrot is, if you only say watch the UFC or seen him coming in, you would think, okay, Sean, what are you talking about? Gamrot's been in the UFC here now for 4.5, 5 years. He's, you know, had a lot, mostly wins. Even his decisions have all been, his losses have all been decision losses. But it's what came before that, I think, for Gamrot that was massive. Like, he had so many fights in KSW, the top dog over there. And, you know, he fought lads like, you know, Andrea Winner, Mansour Barnaoui, Norman Park a couple of times, Kleber Koik Erbst, who's the champion over in Risen, or was anyway. Norman Park 3 times, Marian Zelinsky. Like, all before he got to the UFC. And then he fought Genom Kutadladze. You know, he made his debut back in 2012. He made his KSW debut in 2013. That's 12 years of him fighting. He'd one fighting in Cage Warriors as well. So from 2013 until now, 2025, 12 years, he's only fought massive Cage Warriors fights, massive KSW fights, massive UFC fights, and only one Cage Warriors fight along the way against Tim Newman, who's a good fighter in his day as well. That is a lot of wear and tear. That's a longer prime than most fighters have. And the look at that Dan Hooker fight, to me, did not look like a fighter still in his prime. That's my honest opinion. And then Klein, the other side of it, you know, he's had a similar amount of fights, 28 fights. He's been around for a similar amount of time since 2014. But I think the big difference is here, like, you look at the early days of his career. His first big fight, I suppose, was in ACB in 2017. He had a few fights over there. You know, he fought in Cage Warriors, he fought in Octagon a couple of times as well. When Octagon, you know, wasn't what Octagon is now. And then, you know, he made his way over to the UFC in 2020, like Gamrot. And he fought, on the European scene, and he won some and he lost some. But I think in the last, 7 fights, he's drawn one against Joy Herbert, a very good fighter, and he's won all the rest. Like Roosevelt, Roberts, Moises, Cunningham, Bahamondes, Jones. Like that Bahamondes fight win only looks better and better. Jones win only looks better and better. Moises win. Okay, Moises didn't have such a great last fight, but a very, very good fighter, as we all know. Like, he's a very, very good fighter, is Ludovic Klein. Very well-rounded. Has a lot of experience, a lot of decisions. Fought a lot of different guys as well down through the years. And I think, look, I'll put it this way. If Gamrot's at his very, very best, I think Gamrot will win. But I don't think Gamrot's at his best. And I think Klein is good enough to beat a Gamrot that's not at his best. So I think this might be a turning of the cards moment for European MMA. And I think it might be Slovakia's Ludovic Klein, Mr. Highlight, who gets the win over Gamrot here at plus 138. Right. Those are the top 4 picks. Have I given you all I have? And I love this Flier. I'll probably not win, but I love this Flier. My Flier this week is Kurt Holobaugh to win by submission over Jordan Levitt, a plus 950. Plus 950. Love this bet. So Kurt Holobaugh, 30 fights in his career, won 10 of them by submission. 7 knockouts, 4 decisions. Most of his fights have ended by submission. He also has, it's not on that record, but he also has a submission in Tough as well. Or is it on his record? Maybe it is on his record, because some of them go on the record and some of them don't go on the record. Anyway, like Kurt Holobaugh has always been, a guy that can catch someone. He's always got submissions down through the years. Even in the latest run in the UFC, he caught Austin Hubbard win a triangle. Kurt Holobaugh is no joke on the ground. Absolutely no joke on the ground whatsoever. And you look at Jordan Levitt, 3 losses, 2 of them have been by submission. He's lost 2 of his last 3 fights by submission. One to Chase Hooper, one to Paddy Pimblett. Okay, they're both good and different vintage to Kurt Holobaugh, but Holobaugh's able to fight in the feet. He's not the best striker in the world, but he's a tricky guy on the ground. At 38 years of age, he's well able to submit guys. And I'll be honest, Jordan Levitt, is he that good of a fighter? Has he ever beat anyone that good? Like Matt Wyman when he was out for like 17 years. Was that his best win? I like Holobaugh by submission in that fight. I really like him. I think that plus 950 is crazy. Like we saw the Paddy Pimblett fight. Levitt he finds it very hard not to get taken down. He's in a lot of his fights. He finds it very hard not to end up in a scramble. He does mad things as well. He puts himself in that position. And if he does that against Kurt Holobaugh, he will get submitted, I think. Holobaugh's really, really good on the ground. Like Levitt again is one of those guys that will go for something without thinking. Like if you're fighting Kurt Holobaugh, the first thing you should do is not go for anything crazy to not end up submitted. But I don't think Levitt has that in him. And that's why I think it's a good bet. So plus 950 for Holobaugh to win by submission. Anything else over in UFC? I'll be honest, not a whole pile for me. Elise Ardelene and Ryan DeSantos. I think that's a good price on DeSantos, to be honest. Minus 269. Ardelene is, I don't think she's the best in the world. Although she did perform pretty well against Shauna Bannon. She looked better than she'd ever looked before in that fight. But yeah, I would fancy Ryan DeSantos in that one. Trevin Giles, the underdog against Andreas Gustafsson. I don't know, maybe I haven't seen enough of Gustafsson, but it seems like a bit, why not? I always back Trevin Giles, and he always loses for me. So, and the same could be said for Dustin Jacob, who's the minus 190 favourite here against Bruno Lopez. That was one I really looked hard at, but I just couldn't see. Enough. Then we do Scott Tatarovich. He's the underdog against Zach Reese. Oban Elliott's out of his fight actually, and Razim Brahim he's fighting who's he fighting now? He's fighting someone else. I think they mightn't have the guy he's fighting on the betting yet. He's fighting Billy Goff? Yeah, no, they don't have that here yet. They have, they do. Billy Ray Goff, sorry, never mind. Goff's a big favourite there. Goff's a good fighter, like Brahim, yeah. I watched a good bit of him for the O'Benelli interview. I'll be honest, not overly impressed by him. So yeah, I'd leave that one. And yeah, that's kind of the top and bottom of it. So yeah, we leave it there. Just a quick reminder of the bets for the week. Bet number 1 was Ryan Shelley over Cage Warriors plus 195. We went for Ketlen Vieira at even money. Blanchfield just over even money plus 102 to win the decision. Ludovic Klein plus 138. And in the Flier of the week, Kurt Holobaugh to win by submission at plus 950. All right, everyone, please bet responsibly. I'll leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.